Motion carries. Item 3A is to discuss the vision, mission, and purpose of Carbon County School District 2 BOCES. Turn it over to about the BOCES.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Great, so I think as you all know, we had our director resign prior to our last meeting, and so we're just thought it was a good opportunity to discuss our vision and mission statement, as this will be the defining motion moving forward, I guess. Whatever our mission and vision statement is going to be what our new director is going to use as moving forward with the BOCES program. So I did send the vision and mission statement out to the BOCES board members and just asking for input at today's workshop and see if it encompasses everything that we wanted it to encompass. So Karen looked at me like,
I did not get
my email.
I did not get
So I don't know if you guys got my email.
I got it. Apparently I didn't read it.
Thanks.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. And maybe we like the mission and vision statement and we think it's sufficient in what our goals are. I think it's vague, but I also think that might be okay, because that leaves a lot of room for the director to, make the program partly what they want it to be, as well as what we want it to be. So, Darren, do you have anything that you would add to that?
I don't think so. It seems like the BOCES director, as far as programs that they've offered outside of our regular kindergarten readiness and our dual and concurrent enrollment, just assisting with that, it kind of plays off their strengths. If they have a strong background in a certain area, that's the direction BOCES goes. Cassie and I talked a lot about BOCES in general, and I've shared my ideas about, I like the idea of benefiting our students. I think there's a niche that we have in our district with our students that are on grade level and above that we don't necessarily meet in having a BOCES program that could support that, not just in the summer with programs that we've done in the past, but throughout the year. Might be something that I would like to definitely ask our BOCES director to do with the mission in your direction. Just to come into schools and offer. I mean, we have enrichment time, or we have intervention time for kids, and we have programs for our students that fall below our basic criterias and below our average criterias, but we don't necessarily challenge our kids, I don't feel like, to a extremely high level across the board. And so I asked, if it's a possibility for BOCES to come into our schools, into all of our schools, to help challenge some of our gifted kids and see if we can't get more students that fall in that area.
Do you think in the mission statement you could make priorities? Like, I know that was kind of one of the concern, like make students the top priority, teachers, then community members. So it's a weighted system of where money should go type of thing, or what we should really be using it on.
I think what's really hard about that is if we say that the primary focus is kids or students, is like, it would be easy to spend 100% of our money and make that like if that's gonna be like our number one priority, it'd be so easy to do that. So I think there does need to be some discussion as to what, or how we want to potentially split that, because for those of you that maybe aren't very familiar with BOCES, I really see it like as two different components of BOCES, and one is student focused and the other one is like community focused. And so, like I said, I think it'd be really easy, and my focus would be students, but I do think we need to not lose sight of what we need to offer the communities as well. So, but I do like I do think we need to be more diligent in defining what our goals are. So I think enrichment would be great, and then maybe that means we don't do like the cooking class, or we don't do some of the other programs that we've tried. So
yeah, and one of the our CCSD 2 vision and mission, it has on the back page, it has our goals and it has strategic plan. If there was something like that for BOCES, I mean, because students, we're talking about advanced classes for the high school kids, and then kindergarten readiness. Those are the two main.
Yeah, and also it could be advanced classes or advanced enrichment for our elementary and
For
middle
other
school
kids
students,
as
for
well.
other students.
Yeah, maybe that might be something. I guess in my mind, that a little more like this if we had those, and then like if it is community, that's not something we get to today, but like for community outreach, what are our targets? And that's something to work with the new director. But to be honest, last time it was here, there, everywhere. We had a good idea person that you have to rein in.
But I think one of the problems there that you brought up, James, is that the BOCES board is direct supervisor for the director. I don't think we should be. I think there needs to be somebody there that is with them on a day-to-day. That they have to answer to day-to-day. It's so hard to get a hold of us, it's once a month, so.
When you can't just call Charlie and ask Charlie, is this okay?
Exactly.
And that's one of the hard things I think of being the chairman of the board is like you meet once a month and to get just like buy-in from everybody in the direction moving forward. It can be hard. I know one thing that Darren and I have talked about is, and I think it's something that's been mentioned outside of that as well, is having that director report to someone regarding student activities or student programs. But I think it would be hard to have them report to someone for community activities if in central office,
Yeah.
Maybe that's where the freedom would come for the director then, is to, in the community part of it, but with the kids, I think there needs to be more focus on them, and it has to be supervised somehow. We just can't throw it out there and let it go. Like James said, we have 59 different good ideas, just in college.
If we're focusing on the kids, the director would have to work very closely with the administration. Because they can't just start something without. It just would really have to be a great coordination, communication.
That was one of our biggest complaints, is that we weren't updated, we weren't kept abreast of what was going on with the last director. So if it was a mandatory thing where they had to, once a week, they check in with their immediate supervisor, whoever that might be, and then they could pass that on to us once a month. We're not involved in that day-to-day, just like this board is not involved in day-to-day operations. It's too hard for a board to, all of us get together every time there's a decision or an update or something once a month.
What are your thoughts on that, Darren?
I think I've talked with Cassie and Karen a little bit about this, and they're pretty cautious about throwing something else on my plate, but I would agree. I think there needs to be someone that is at least the go-to, I don't want to say below the board, but in a separate path than the board. The two districts that I reached out to both have district administrators assigned to their BOCES, whether that was the human resources director or the superintendent. That's who the BOCES director reports to. And I think it would be a good thing. I think it would help our kids. Community-wise would be a little bit tough, but really if you do that interest, to get some kind of an interest inventory out to our community leaders, figure out what our communities need, and then base your classes or base finding people, to do some classes. I think it would be very doable to have, our central office be responsible to coordinate with our BOCES director to make sure we're going down the right track. I think that would be something that would be doable. Yes.
Agreed.
I guess one thought too I have, so right now the BOCES board is 4 people off the school board. Is that appropriate? Should it be different? I mean, is there a rule that it has to be? Put in the handbook, but maybe there's somebody from the community focus that wants adult education classes of some sort that would be interested in being on the board as opposed to just school board members.
That's a great idea. I don't know the answer to that. When we do have one person, a board member from WWCC. that sometimes comes to our meetings, or, videos in.
I don't remember, I'm sorry, if I may,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, when Mr. Gates brought all of that together, the 4-member school board and the 1 member of the college board was the thumbprint of what was given to him to set up the BOCES. I'll do some research and see about involving a community member on the board. But that was the thumbprint that he was given at the time when we set this up, was that it was 1 representative from the community college and then the remainder of the representatives from the school board, because it was school board focused. And the community college was because of your dual and concurrent enrollment.
And I do think it works well, the way that it is structured, that I think having a community member might be beneficial.
Yeah, I just like, like a Cheryl Monroe when we're doing classes, we can't member or somebody else, or Thursday, Friday. You get the point.
So would you increase the number of members? Just
I wouldn't, and I'd be like maybe 3 school board members and 1 community member, or 2 and 2. That's just me.
So how would we bring about that community member? Through appointment?
You just have to, well, it's an appointed board, so they would just have to be willing to serve, and if they could be appointed to it, just like we are.
Appointed by the school board?
Yeah, I'm by the chairman.
I haven't read it yet, but if you would like me to, it does in your handbook state some details about the board. It just says it shall be composed of 5 members. It does say 4 members shall be elected from district number 2 and 1 member shall be elected from Western Wyoming. So that the handbook would need to change.
Yeah, from District 2, but like if you live in the district,
Well, that is true.
I mean, are you a patron of the district? It doesn't say.
It does not say school board members, you are correct.
You just have to live in District 2, well, I would say. Somebody has to be willing to do it. And it's the same time as our meeting, so that's convenient, or the same day.
Cassie and I talked a little bit too about, so you don't just, play on the interests of your BOCES director. You don't just do things that they're interested in doing and leave everything out. We talked about, being more of the director and maybe, paying for those programs to happen versus teaching the classes. I think that was something, if you don't have to be an expert in, if canning is an area that your community really has a need and interest, and you don't know how to can anything, you can, use some BOCES money to find an instructor to do that. And so we talked a little bit about that. That way, your BOCES doesn't just follow the interest of your director, but it meets the needs of your community.
Yeah, looking at that mission vision page again, so we have a vision, mission, which basically say the same thing, and then a bunch of employment stuff that just doesn't need to be on that page, I don't think. But if instead of that, if it was priorities, or I think just if it was more with a little more direction or goal for priorities. It's funny to me that the employment stuff is on that page. Like that doesn't need to be out there for that. The person that's the director, they obviously need to know that. But it's not something we got.
And that was taken out of our manual, right? Our BOCES manual. So.
Yeah, it was just photocopied out of the handbook.
Are there any comments on the vision or mission statement?
Like you said, it's very vague. But I think the priorities I think they need to have some kind of priority set there. Being a board member, it's the students, kids should be our first priority, and then everything else takes second seat.
Using our Carbon County School District number 2 mission and vision statement right here, I think the mission and vision, because like the mission and vision here are very vague. But then they have goals 1, goal 2. So if we could incorporate it along the same format, you know, because you don't want to make a mission vision statement, 23 pages, because nobody's going to read it if it's that long. But it at least gives us a guideline as BOCES board members, is what the director wants to do. Does it increase the educational opportunities for District 2, whether it be student stakeholders or community members? But if we have goal 1, as students, and, there's some way to prioritize it in the goals.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, and I think you almost need a BOCES director. I mean, it is a little bit vague if someone comes in and asks you specific questions about what their job's going to be like, but you will want the director to participate in the goals going forward. Definitely.
On the vision statement, I guess I would change that around and put students before community members and stakeholders. That's the priority. Just change the order of that wording. And then on the other one, the mission, it says students, teachers, and community members.
I do think whoever our next director is has there's a lot of acquainting to do before they can jump in and get a lot of the programs off the ground. I think some of this stuff is probably going to be what has to happen first, and going through our manual, and, keeping the dual and concurrent enrollment moving forward, as well as kindergarten readiness, and then, so I don't think we can expect that person, based on what we provided them, to just kind of come in and be off and running, so.
We did last time.
So was that
I wasn't on
director
board then.
appointed by the college, by Western Wyoming?
The director, no, the BOCES board will.
Appointed director.
Appointment, yeah. So to that point, our deadline was last week. We had 4 applicants. By the end of this week, I think we'll have it narrowed down to the candidates that we're going to interview, and interview those candidates starting the week of October 3rd. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we are hoping to make an appointment at our October meeting.
So how many hours a week is the plan, or, we changed that a little at the end, the last one. What did you advertise it as? 20
to 25, even though I think at one time I even heard 20 to 30. And I think during certain times of the year, they might be expected to work, closer to the 30, and that would be when dual and concurrent enrollment is kind of kicking off. But I do think, based on some things with our last director, some things that we want to do differently. So that's something else maybe just to think about, but having office hours and how many office hours we want them to have. I think we do need to make a statement that the director lives in the district and is expected to come to our meetings in person. So there's some things like that, or maybe even weekly updates, just a quick little thing board briefs. Yep. So I kind of have a list of some things that I'm hopeful that we can do. So you guys have some things in there too as well.
And the page here, it says creating a job description may be discussed. Isn't that this meeting? Or
Yeah.
you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I was wondering if we had a job description.
So what we found through this process is we really don't have a job description that we could find. The closest thing that we do have is our director evaluation that kind of outlines what our expectations are. But outside of that, we really don't. So I'm not really, I wasn't sure I saw that on there as well. Job description may be discussed. If there's, maybe I'll just preface it with, we can work on a job description, and if there are things that the board members would like to see, maybe just email me and Darren, and we can try to put something together, or at least a draft Does that sound reasonable?
Sounds very good.
Okay. And I can send out an email as well with some of those ideas that I had for the new director.
So when we advertised for the director's job, how did we advertise it if we don't have a job description for it?
So I don't have that in front of me, but it is on our website, so I can pull that up.
I have it.
Do you?
here,
Okay.
if you would like me to.
That'd be
read
great.
it, if I can make my computer work. I can't get to the top, there we go. It's just listed as the district BOCES director. This came from a previous listing. Primary responsibilities will include but not limited to the following: increase educational opportunities for CCSD community and students, work to increase the dual and concurrent opportunities for secondary students, work collaboratively with community colleges and other BOCES, seek and apply for appropriate grant support for BOCES program, support continuing education for adults in the community, bachelor's degree preferred but not required, part-time position up to approximately 20 to 25 hours per week, beginning rate of pay $25 per hour.
Good job. I think that's, that's kind of describes what we're currently doing. I think that's. Just so we don't miss anything as well, this goes along the same lines of finding the community members that are experts in the fields that you want to teach. Cassie and I also talked, if this person, wants to, for kindergarten readiness, for example, we have kindergarten teachers that do the readiness program and they submit vouchers for their time and BOCES pays them for teaching the classes. If we have counselors that are just amazing at doing the dual and concurrent enrollment for kids and really drumming up more kids to take these college classes, that's another area that we can, maybe offer some extra pay for our counselors for doing that part of the program as well. Again, not sometimes when you tell someone they're responsible for this, they really slow down or can hinder the process rather than just opening it up for the people that already know what to do and to open up more opportunities for our kids. So really keep our programs moving forward and may not be the director of everything kind of philosophy, I guess. Maybe be the director of BOCES, but not the teacher of every program that we have, or the keeper of all of our programs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the teachers that do the kindergarten readiness, that's like extra time that we pay for, right?
It is, yes.
In the summertime. So.
Or after school.
Or after school, yeah, so it'd be the
yes.
same with the counselors?
Yes.
Like if it's after hours or.
After
then
hours.
Yes, if it's during school hours, it's CCSD too.
Right.
And that,
Okay, well, I agree with what Darren just brought up, is the fact that the counselors have a more intimate relationship with the students. We can't expect the director to go out and recruit kids for dual enrollment. That would be difficult, I would think.
I guess, has that been, and maybe Stephen, the high school principal, speak to that, has that been really an issue? The counselors do that do they have time to do that during their day, or not really?
The counselors typically help the kids kind of sign up for the classes, and really it's the new process through Western. They kind of walk the kids through it, and a lot of it's on the kids and more now. We help point them in the right direction, help them kind of figure out what classes they should take, not taking these high-level classes or whatever, or what would be some good possibilities to take, or some recommendations for that, and just point them in the right direction. And then really working with our BOCES director to make sure we get the books ordered and get everything here on time and get any needed materials here and ready to go.
And the feedback we have received from the counselors is it's just easier to do, for them to do it themselves instead of having to go to the director and get, have that communication and there being issues and then who's responsible. And so, it's almost like I could see the BOCES director just adding whatever additional support, almost directed though by the counselor of,
So-
what's needed.
And I can give you for an examples, like our kids sign up, the counselors have to approve them, it goes to Western, it comes back to the BOCES director, and then it sits there and waits until the BOCES director approves them before they're registered in the class. So it's a multi-tiered process. So a lot of times they're just sitting there waiting, everything's done on our end, until that last checkbox where the BOCES director approves, yes, this kid can take it. So if that's delegated then to the counselors, then yeah, the counselors just check that box and say, yes, they're approved. Or then it goes to, that could still be rely on the BOCES director, but then they just know, yep, if the counselor's already approved it, they just check it and hit yes. And if they have those office hours and so forth that they can depend on, then it makes that process go a lot quicker.
Excuse me. Another thing you need to remember is that BOCES is approving the funds being spent for those due on concurrent enrollment. Your counselors are not. So that's part of the reason it has to go through the BOCES directors, because your funding for those programs are going through BOCES and not through Carbon 2. Okay, so remember that. I did find the statute regarding BOCES, and it says that the minimum number of BOCES trustees is 5, that's the minimum, 5 or 9. So 5, that's the reason for the 5.
Okay.
And then it says, then it says, each participating board of trustees shall have at least one member. So the way I'm interpreting this, and I'm not an attorney, and but I'm interpreting that in order to be a member of the board of trustees of your BOCES board, you have to be an elected board of trustee member on a regular school board. So that's why you don't have community members being part of BOCES boards. That way. And I looked at a couple of other BOCES, and they don't have, all they have are district board members as their BOCES boards.
Well, that makes that really clear.
So, yeah, but I did put this on a Word document and send it to all of you, so you have it.
So read that again, it said it had to be, at least one of them had to be a board member?
Right, and that's where you get, like, Region 5 has, 16 or 20 different districts that are part of the Region 5 BOCES, so at least they have to elect their members from those different districts. They have a 9-member board for Region 5, and all of those members are a part of the districts that are members of that board. Whereas this Carbon 2 BOCES is just one district, so that's why 4 of the members are from the Carbon 2 board and just 1 member from the community college, because of the higher education piece.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else related to BOCES you guys want?
I don't have anything else to you guys.
So I guess if you go through that, cleaning up the BOCES mission and vision through the BOCES board process, you'll just give us a copy to the rest of the school board. Kind of an update at some point.
Okay.
So we could follow up.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. I don't think that'll happen until we get a new director pretty well established, but.
Right, yeah, in the next several months. This year or something, probably. School year. Okay, let's move on to item B. I put this in the work session just because I didn't feel like we really needed to do it during the normal session. And I don't honestly know how much there is to it. We just, as a board, have an opportunity to provide feedback for University of Wyoming's strategic plan through, one, a written response. We could have a Zoom conference call with the board association, obviously, or an in-person consultation. I just and if any of you had a chance to look it over, any at all, or if we want to send any sort of feedback. Obviously, we have a fair bit of time in this work session, but we have a lot of topics, so you can click on it.
Well, my thought was the fact that they asked us, at least they asked for our input. Whether they'll pay attention or not, I don't know. That's another question. However, as I look through their strategic plan, which is 20 pages, and, once again, to some degree, it sounds good, but then they used words that send up red flags on their mission statement. It says advance cultural vitality. Okay, well, what do they mean by that? Then they go in values, they want to be inclusive. Well, that's a dangerous word, inclusive. Real world education, inclusivity, collective growth, action focused. All of those are words that we see in the current political climate that has fostered Antifa, BLM, all of that to be activity focused. In other words, out rioting. These are words, and if that's what they mean, then I don't want that at the University of Wyoming.
So one comment I would say, real world education to me means extension.
Means what?
UW extension.
Okay, and that might be.
So, but it was to clarify, I get some of the other ones, but.
But I actually came up, because I studied other mission and vision statements from other colleges and universities, and I actually came up with, and this goes back to the preamble in the Wyoming Constitution. And let me read the preamble. It says, "We, the people of the state of Wyoming, grateful to God for our civil, political, and religious liberties, and desiring to secure them to ourselves and perpetuate them to our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution." Well, then in Section 1, or Article 1, Section 23, where it says education, it states the right of citizens to opportunities for education should have practical recognition, and the legislature shall suitably encourage means and agencies calculated to advance the science and liberal arts. But this was to support the preamble. The preamble is the key, where it says to secure our civil, political, and religious liberties to ourselves and perpetuate them to our posterity. Well, then I came up with a conglomeration of what I gathered from other mission and vision statements of other universities, where, and I wish I had a copy of this where I could just hand it out to people to read, but it says, "The University of Wyoming also considers itself a trustee of our Western philosophical and theological inheritance, tracing to Athens and Jerusalem, a heritage finding its clearest expression in the American experiment of self-government under law. By training the young in the liberal arts, UW prepares students to become worthy, or to become leaders worthy of that legacy. And the university values the merit of each unique individual, rather than succumbing to the dehumanizing, discriminatory trend of so-called social justice and multicultural diversity, which judges individuals not as individuals, but as members of groups, which pits one group against other competing groups in divisive power struggles." Okay.
Where did you get that one, the last one?
That came from other colleges and universities. Yeah, I never come up with anything on my own. I just copy everybody else's. But I would like to see that because that would perpetuate what we have right now in our country. Is it perfect? No. But when my grandson, as a sophomore at Eastern Cheyenne East, came up to me and said slavery was an integral part of the foundation of this country, that scared me. I mean, where did he come up with that? I mean, he was 15 years old. He was taught that at school in Cheyenne East. So we think it's not going to come here because we're such a conservative school and community. It's coming.
I'm kind of a simple guy, and I think the university has a lot more money and a lot more greater minds than mine to understand that without our input. I think we lose focus when we try to stick our nose in somebody else's business when we are having a hard time taking care of our own. I don't think we need to, sure, it's an opinion, that's all we're given, but it's time wasted on giving that when we should focus that on our own district, our own school district. That's my 2 cents.
I think we're an important stepping stone for the university, though, I had a guy from the university that came over, and he's from the College of Education, and he was questioning parents and family members in town, and it called me just about why teachers aren't getting into the field of teaching. Like, they are always reaching out for different ideas in different ways. And if you don't give your opinion and your views in Wyoming, the people that have very differing views from you will give theirs, and that will be what they get the most of.
I agree with that, I do. I think we need to set our kids up first. We have to do our best for the kids at this age, not set them up in college. I don't think, not like that. We have to do our best to prepare them for college, not to ensure that college is going to continue them. We can't have that as our job.
But we can be a support to the university for knowledge on the ground. I mean, it's like asking parents what parents think, of things, or where we do all the surveys for things like that. The university is reaching out to other schools because we're all in the our concern is education, so we might see things differently. It's a way for them to measure things and make sure too that they're doing what their constituents want, basically, kind of. It's not that we're telling the university how to do it, but we're just helping them put a little bit of our view of what we see, and maybe they'd be like, any different ideas. A lot of times where you get different ideas from different places, it's because somebody's outside of the box looking in, and you can see it totally different, and the perspective helps.
I guess we could trade opinions, and they could help us and we could help them.
Yeah. I think one thing I took from some of their values and stuff is I like that you get nervous that they're like a number 2 of the values. One is wild and working lands. I'm glad it says working lands too, because it makes me nervous if they're just wild land and it's just forest to go hunt and commune with nature. That they're also, you can run cows on the forest, and we have ag, and like in number 3, if they say they value real world education connected to place where you learn by doing, so that's extension of coming out, or if you're in an engineering college, you actually come out and do projects, on I-80, or that in Wyoming, it's not that far to actually be out on the ground versus sitting up in some ivory tower and just lecturing. So to me, I really like that it's connected, the part of their focus and values is connected to actually being out on the ground and actually real world stuff, as opposed to some of the stuff Joe talked about with inclusivity and diversity and
I care a whole lot less about that. I'm more like, yeah, value the individual. So those are some things I really like that I saw.
Well, you know, I think college is gonna be what the student or the pupil makes of it. So I think, like you said, Charlie, preparing our kids for that is very important, because it's, how many of us went into college wanting to be something and came out doing something different? So we got in there and that school had taught us or changed our mind. But Joel, thank you for the time that you put into that and the research that you did. That wasn't a 5-minute job. So I don't want you to feel like we're just, because you're right, that is coming. And it's coming to all these little bitty towns. You can start to see it coming. So, you know, thank you for putting forth the effort and bringing that to the board as well, so.
Any other thoughts, comments about providing feedback to this, or any just in general comments?
If we were to provide some kind of feedback to them, what ideas would you give them? Anybody thought about that?
Yeah, that's what Joe's input was. My input was, I like that it's real world based. He doesn't want it to go woke.
Yeah.
To simplify it. So, you know,
So that's how we would give that to them?
yeah, written up a little nicer, but yeah.
We put a bow on it, Charlie.
Like, you know, here's some things we see in it. You know, I guess to me, if we wanted to do it, I think a written thing would be more effective. Because if you get into a 45 or 55-minute Zoom or in person, it's just a conversation that goes nowhere. If you have something written, then you just say, hey, this is what we think.
One page is good.
One page, yeah, one page of highlights.
There is also a link to a survey, and I believe this went out to every board member too. That certainly, my understanding was, my recollection is that it went to board members. And so I guess, just to let you all know that there is a link to a survey as well.
Yeah, and it said, one of the things it said is they've had like 200 on campus listening. This has been developed from major outcomes, over 200 campus dialogues. That's some of the next stage goals. So, I mean, obviously they've put a lot into this. They're not gonna change it a bunch by any stretch.
Well, it's like I said, will they listen? Maybe, maybe not. But the point is that at least we put forth, you know, what we believe or want to see. But if we don't say anything, it's like Karen said, if we don't say anything, then we're almost saying we approve of what they wrote up.
Yeah, I'm happy to write something up if you guys will send me some comments, written comments, and send something. And I'll share it back out. You guys can edit it or whatever, but yeah, I tend to think the same as Karen, that it's not gonna hurt to provide it, and if several school districts and other things provide somewhat similar comments, you know, pros, cons, I think it's important to support what you're for just as much as what you're against. They're more likely to listen or not take out the things that we think are important. You know, same thing, Darren, you want to know any
So when
comments?
is the deadline?
September 30th, is that what it is?
We
It's
don't
pretty
have a lot
quick,
of time.
September 30th, so we don't have a lot of time,
It's the
so,
end of the month.
yeah, so, you know,
Be in favor of sending them something, providing some feedback, good and bad.
As in fact, in this is the Education Code 21-9-102, and I'll just read a sentence. It says, the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wyoming should be included in the education, but including the study of and devotion to, that's key, the study of and devotion to American institution and ideals. And right now, the education that's taking place in a lot of universities now, UW, I don't know, but I know other universities where they are actually tearing down capitalism and our institutions, and this goes into the critical theory, and I use critical as opposed to critical race. The critical race theory tears down the institutions we have. But the critical theory has expanded into gender, I'm losing my mind, choice of genders, and I mean, it's black crit, and there's all these other explanations. But the critical theory, if you actually go into it, was instrumental from the philosophers Hegel, Nietzsche. Horace Mann was actually a great follower of these philosophies, who is considered the founder of American education, which were, they call World War II because of these philosophies. 20th century, 19th and 20th centuries were followers of philosophy. And because of those philosophies, we've had what we have today. But that's just a fact of life. But what's important is not only what we do teach, but what we don't teach. And if you don't teach the devotion and the advantage of our institutions that we have here, somebody else is going to teach the devalue of it.
Yeah. So, yeah, the mission statement where it says, engage Wyoming stakeholders to cultivate and advance economic and cultural vitality. The cultural vitality, you brought up that can be a negative, can also be a positive if you focus on the positive side of not history of U.S. history.
Yeah, it's like when we did our resolution last year, where we not only said what we won't promote, we did say what we would promote.
The one great thing about the university is it should be a place of diverse views. So you don't have to agree with, so you don't have to be a Christian, capitalist, white person. You can be a Hispanic capitalist person too. Just kidding. But it should be very, diverse, but don't just not teach one side and the other, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
As the educational law says, though, we need to teach devotion to those institutions and principles.
Right.
But in order to do that, you have to show what doesn't work. As opposed to what does work.
Right.
Kind of like there's a right way to use a wrench and a wrong way.
Now, Joe, people have a right hand and a left hand. They got to hold it differently.
A wrench can be a really good hammer too.
Yeah, there's a good
That's the
song
wrong
about
way.
that.
You don't use a screwdriver as a chisel.
That is what I have in my car to get the ice off the bottom of my car.
If you're a hammer, the whole world's a nail. Don't matter. But I think whatever we send obviously has to be probably professionally worded and done in such a way that they're likely to listen to it and not just tell them to understand it like those haters.
Okay, so what you're asking is that we send information to you?
Yeah, like summarize what you're saying into a paragraph or something. I think like Sally said, if we could distill something, some pros and cons that we might see in there to a one-page thing, like, hey, we like this, here's some of our concerns. One page. And we might even be, it could be specific to a certain part about it or certain language, or it could be broad, but yeah, if you guys will send that to me, I think I'll try to distill it into something that's one page
And then I'll share back out, and if you guys can respond with comments on that, and the majority of us could basically agree on saying something. Should have it out by the 30th.
Okay.
All right. We do not have any other agenda items for the work session. We have bills committee at half an hour. Not gonna add anything to it. I'll adjourn this work session.